All right, it's June 24th of 2010, and with the first overall pick, the Washington Wizards select John Wall. On the same day, a few other fresh faces will be alongside him, most notably DeMarcus Cousins, Gordon Hayward, and Paul George, who have all just made their dreams a reality by being drafted to the NBA. But the real action will start on July 1st, which was the first day of free agency, and when at exactly midnight, Houston Rockets GM Daryl Morey meets with Chris Bosh about joining the Rockets. That same day in Ohio, the Nets, Knicks, Bulls, Heat, Cavs, and Clippers take turns making pitches to LeBron James on why he should join their team. But the honor of the first free agency signing goes to Drew Gooden, who signed with the Bucks. And the second free agency signing will be NBA draft bust Darko Milicic to the Timberwolves. But the first big signing takes place on July 6th when Amari Stoudemire signs a $100 million contract with the Knicks. And big moves kept happening after that, because on the next day, on July 7th, it was confirmed that Chris Bosh will be joining D Wade in Miami. So fans were pretty excited about the new addition to the team, just as excited as Bulls fans were about the arrival of Carlos Boozer, who signed an $80 million contract that same day. But the craziest day of free agency would happen on July 8th, when ISO Joe will become the highest paid player in the league, inking a $123 million deal with the Atlanta Hawks to remain with the team. But that's not what made it the craziest. No, what made it the craziest day was the decision. And that decision changed the game forever, because at this time it was unprecedented for this many stars to be moving during free agency. But LeBron James broke the mold, and that basically wrapped up free agency when he made his decision to join the Miami Heat. And with all the player movement, the NBA cashed in on opening night by having the original big three of Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce versus the new kids in town in D Wade, Chris Bosh, and LeBron. And the Celtics will make an early statement that they were still the better team. They went ahead and beat the Heat 88-80, and though the first quarter of the season, the Celtics kept up that momentum. And through the first quarter of the season, the Celtics kept up that momentum as they were the best team in the East, trailed by Orlando, and Miami had a rough start through the first quarter of the season as the Heatles were adjusting to playing with each other. Also during this time, MVP talks are starting up, and early talks around the league are that Dwight Howard and the kid up in the Windy City, Derrick Rose, as well as a few murmurs here and there for the guy making the Knicks fun again and Amari Stoudemire, are the front runners for the award. But one award that looked to be locked up already, even in the first quarter of the season, was the Rookie of the Year, and it was going to the kid wowing the world in a Los Angeles uniform, posterizing any defender who dares stand in his way and leaving bodies in his wake. Yeah, I'm talking about Blake Griffin, who's putting on a show out there for the Clippers. Now, leading up to Christmas, everyone was concerned about the big three in Miami, but they hushed that noise when they abused the Lakers on Christmas, who were the defending champs. LeBron had a triple-double that game and now was starting to put his name back in MVP conversations. But things will only get more heated as teams started to try to make a mid-season push for playoff position. Miami has started to figure things out, and the Bulls are looking great as both are fighting for the right to be number one out east. And out west, it's the old rivalry between the Lakers and the Spurs for dominance of the Western Conference, as both teams are neck and neck in the standings. The playoffs picture is starting to get clearer as things get closer to the All-Star break. The MVP talks are starting to ramp up as it looks like it's Derrick Rose's race to lose, but names like Dirk, Amari, and Dwight have put some pressure on the rising star, especially as the Bulls did have a small losing streak, and with all the storylines playing out, the All-Star starters get announced on January 27th, and the players that everyone expected does make the starting lineup. But when reserves are announced, to everyone's surprise, a rookie made the cut, and Blake Griffin, beating out Kevin Love, who will make it as an injury reserve, and becoming the first rookie since Yao Ming to make the All-Star game. And even more surprisingly, it was the coaches who voted him in. Everyone was ecstatic about All-Star weekend, and right before the festives, TNT hosted a fantasy draft where former NBA legends would build the greatest team of all time, and the player with the most All-Stars went first. And if they were tied, it went to the one who had the most championships. So the person with the first pick ended up being Charles Barkley. And with his first pick, he selected Allen Iverson. To everyone's surprise, history repeated itself, and Michael Jordan wouldn't be selected into the third pick. An even crazier thing would come as Kobe wouldn't be selected into the fifth pick of the third round, and LeBron didn't get selected into the second pick of the fourth round. But one of the most disrespectful things will happen because with the first pick of the 9th round, they selected KD, who was a 2-time scoring champ at this time, but now he was only in his 4th season, so it seems like it wouldn't be that disrespectful. But what made it so disrespectful is that the pick right before him was Darren Williams. Yes, Darren Williams was selected before KD in the fantasy draft. Matter of fact, he was one of only a few current players to get selected, and he was selected over guys such as CP3 and Carmelo. Now let's get to the All-Star Weekend, which started off as tradition with the rookies versus sophomore game, which honestly has some quality names, such as John Wall, Boogie, Stephen Curry, Blake Griffin, James Harden, DeMar DeRozan, and others. And it would be the rookies who would get the dub, with the performance from Wesley Johnson, who had 25, Boogie, who had 33, as well as the MVP of the game in John Wall, who had 12 points and 22 assists. But it would be Saturday that was the real opener for the All-Stars, as this night was kicked off with the Skills Challenge, which had some actual stars participating in John Wall, Russell Westbrook, Stephen Curry, and defending champ Chris Paul, as well as MVP frontrunner Derrick Rose. And it would be Steph who took home the trophy. The three-point contest was also interesting with names such as Ray Allen, who had just become the all-time leader in three-pointers, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Durant. But even more surprising than that, it wouldn't be any of them who wins it, but rather Jim Jones to win the contest. The last event of the night was the dunk contest, which everyone was waiting for because All-Star rookie Blake Griffin was participating. And overall, it was a good contest as the final round came down to JaVale McGee and Blake Griffin. And JaVale had a crazy dunk where he dunked 2 basketballs at once, but it wouldn't matter because Blake Griffin had the moment of his career by jumping over the cart and dunking it, winning the contest, and wowing the world. Sunday was the final event of All-Star Weekend, and the event that most people tuned in to see, and people were not disappointed. In the first half of the game, things were relaxed, but in the second half, Eagles started to come in to play, and the game got tense. LeBron had a crazy performance, dropping 27 points with a triple dub, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get the dub over Kobe, who had 37 points and 14 rebounds, as well as a block on LeBron, which got him the All-Star Game MVP, which was his 4th time winning the award. After a great All-Star weekend, the media had plenty to talk about, as conversations about who was the best player in the league started up again after Kobe balled out against LeBron. But the biggest news was that it was confirmed that Carmelo Anthony will be getting traded to the Knicks to team up with MVP candidate Amari Stoudemire, creating major buzz as the Knicks looked like they had the guys who would lead them to the promised land. Even though they had to give up everything to get them, at least they got another superstar is what they was thinking probably. Things only continued to heat up after All-Star break as teams were trying to make statements and separate themselves from the pack. Miami seemed to have figured it out and were looking strong after the break. The Celtics and Magic also were not slacking off, and the Bulls were looking like the best team in basketball as they separated themselves and took the #1 defensive spot from the Celtics out west. The Lakers and the Spurs kept up their old rivalry, battling out for the #1 seed, but slowly it was clear that the Spurs would finish off on top of the rankings as the #1 seed. As the season had basically concluded, the playoff picture became clearer and fans were excited for it to start as no one was certain of who would win the whole thing. In the first round, you had the Bulls versus the Pacers, and in game 1, Rose set the tone and showed why he was the front runner for MVP, dropping 39 points. The Bulls went on to win the series in 5. As for the other series, you had the Heat versus the Sixers. Miami won in 5. The Celtics went ahead and swept the newly formed Knicks, and the Hawks upset Dwight Howard and the Magic. But don't feel too bad for Dwight because the Spurs, as the first seed, lost to the 8th seeded Grizzlies in 6. The Lakers took care of New Orleans in 6. The Thunder took care of the Nuggets in 5, and the Mavericks handled the Trailblazers in 6. Heading into the second round, where things started getting interesting because NBA award winners are announced, and Derrick Rose wins the award in a landslide over second place Dwight Howard. But Dwight does get Defensive Player of the Year. Rookie of the Year goes to Blake Griffin, which was obvious, and Sixth Man goes to Lamar Odom, and Most Improved goes to Kevin Love. After winning MVP, Rose and the Bulls advanced to the conference finals, and out west, the Grit and Grind Grizzlies give the young OKC core all they can handle as the Thunder eliminate them in 7. But the biggest series that happened were the Heat and Celtics and the Lakers and Mavericks. Now the Heat played the Celtics 4 times that season and only managed to beat them once, which was in the last game of the season where they smoked them 100-77. So everybody thought it would be a hard-fought series. But Wade and LeBron begged to differ, as the Heat dominated the series and beat the Celtics in 5. As KG and Pierce looked extremely frustrated throughout the series, and Rondo was playing with a dislocated elbow. Also probably didn't help that the Celtics had Delonte West on their bench. If you know, you know. But out west, the series between the Lakers and the Mavericks had everyone surprised, as the Lakers were the defending champs, who had thumped out the Mavericks 110-82 last time they played. But in the playoffs, the Mavericks brought the brooms on the Lakers and dog walked them out of the game in Game 4. After the Mavericks hit 20 threes, while 15 of those threes came from Peja and Terry, who were bench players, leaving a final score of 122-86 and advancing to the conference finals, where they will be met by OKC. Now in the Eastern Conference Finals, you have the two best teams with the best records in the Bulls, who was led by the MVP Derrick Rose, versus the Big Three out in Miami. And the Bulls were confident they would win, as they had swept the series in the regular season. And it seemed like they had every right to be confident, because they took Game 1 with 103-82 behind a 28-point performance from the MVP. But that would be the only game they would win, as LeBron and Bosh promptly kicked it up to high gear and dominated the rest of the series, winning it in 5. Out west, the Mavericks followed the Heat steps, dismantling Young Thunder in 5 games, behind Dirk's 32 points per game and 2 signature performances where he put up 48 in Game 1 and 40 in Game 4. Now it's down to the last 2, and it's a rematch of the 2006 finals with the Heat versus the Mavericks. Miami takes Game 1, and it's looking like they're going to take Game 2, but they start to have a meltdown down the stretch, and Dirk and Jason Terry combine for 17 points in the 4th quarter to edge out the win. Miami comes back and wins a close Game 3 behind a 29-point performance from Wade, and in Game 4, Dirk is dealing with illness and isn't playing like his usual self, but good for him. It looks like LeBron also might have caught something, as he has been playing like hot garbage himself. The whole game, Miami was up 9 with 10 minutes to go, but yeah, again, Dirk showed up in the 4th quarter scoring 10 points, while Jason Terry poured in 8 points in the 4th quarter alone, edging out another close. But what ultimately might have woken the beast in the Mavericks was something LeBron and Wade did right before Game 5, which was mock Dirk for being sick. So Dirk responded with a 29-point Game 5 performance along with a dub, and capped off his Game 5 performance with another good performance in Game 6. And the Dallas Mavericks will repay the Miami Heat for the 2006 final and celebrate the championship on the Heat's court. So yeah, the 2010-11 season was just wild, with so many shifts in standings and player movement in the offseason, as well as the formation of a quote-unquote super team. The 2010-11 NBA season did not disappoint. The storylines were entertaining and kept the audience engaged, and the ending was the best part, because nobody would have predicted the Mavs would win the whole thing. Oh, my bad.